Thank you so much for agreeing to do my podcast. Here with Jean Pienaar, where we'll be discussing topic of power imbalances in community engagement and how they are addressed. Jean, could you please introduce yourself a bit and then we can start?
All right, as Nandeka says, my name is Jean Pienaar. I have been involved with Wits University for a number of years, lecturing in integrated development planning. Before that, life before Wits, I was involved in both public and private sector, predominantly private sector, in the planning field, working largely in KwaZulu-Natal, and a lot of rural and regional work. When I went down to the Western Cape, it was more urban sort of development applications, development control, that sort of thing. And yeah, so a wide range of experience.
And what do you currently do?
What I currently do, I'm a sessional lecturer at Wits. So yeah, help out with Alison's course on regional economic or quantitative economic analysis. And then I freelance from home, doing bits and pieces here and there, whether it's putting together an objection for some development proposal, or just whatever it is, a variety of work that comes across, some national work, some work with the national team as well, with Splumer or implementation charter and that sort of thing. There we go.
No, thank you. That's helpful. So our first question is, what is your understanding of power imbalance in urban planning?
Okay, well, there are a couple of ways to look at it. The first is that within the planning team, so I was fortunate enough in my working in KZN, I was part of a small team, and I was a member with two other chaps, and we had the small consultancy that we worked in. And so that really, I didn't see a power imbalance at all there. I was much younger than the guys, but they respected my input, and I think, I learned a lot in the process, a lot about managing a small business, watching cash flow, and that was a great learning experience for me. So yes, there was a power imbalance in that they obviously had much more experience than I did, but I didn't feel it negatively impact me at all. And then working in teams. So referring back to some of the national projects that I've been working on, I've been I was appointed together with other. Some of them are quite. I think 20 years ago I would have shaken a bit in my boots, knowing that I'm working with them. But it was a good experience, and we had a mutual respect for each other. So this appointment was, or these kind of project-based appointments are done as and when the project needs that sort of multidisciplinary team. And I think we have a mutual respect for each other. Maybe it was just the team I was working with, but there was a professionalism. There was a definite sense of professionalism, respecting other people's inputs, and we, commented on the work of our colleagues to, in terms of editing the report. So yeah, so that was also a positive experience. In terms of power imbalance out in the field, sometimes it's there. As a professional, you're walking into a room of community people, and you do sense that there is a power imbalance. Not that you've imposed it, but that it's I think especially working in rural communities, deep rural communities. I remember being involved in a project in rural KwaZulu-Natal, and we were working with this community, coming up with a development plan, a prioritization for the way forward, and part of it involved doing a mapping exercise of the area and working out and quantifying what needed to be placed where. And this community, after the day's session, would invite us as consultants to go round for a meal. So they'd cooked a special meal for us. And yeah, that was quite humbling, because I certainly wasn't expecting it. But yeah, I felt at the time that, gosh, I've actually got some status. Not that I was expecting it, but yeah, that was that. Other times, yeah, I think as a professional coming into a context, you're viewed as an expert and expected to produce something. The project I've just been involved in recently, I think being able to hold the space and hold different people and formulate them together into some sort of coherent report was what was particularly valued by the different community groups I was working with. And then you also get the situation where, you come with options. So there's an area that there's a community that has received some land in terms of the land reform, and they're wanting to know, well, I'm working with them to determine what's the best use of the land, and they as a professional, I come in with a number of options, and I think that's the value that the planner brings to the table. But the planner also needs to remember that actually this land belongs to the community, and to listen to what they're wanting to do. So if they're wanting to do something, if they're wanting to use the land just to live on, instead of using it as an option to generate income, then as a planner, one needs to respect that and support the community in their decision.
That definitely helps. I like how you basically explained it in more of a collaborative way of just helping each other, and like the power imbalance is not necessarily a negative thing or one trying to take over the other. It's more of a one can learn from the other, or it's the one who's in power helps the one who is in less power, which is very interesting.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so my next question then would be, in your experience, what are some of the common challenges that you faced by yourself when experiencing power imbalances in community engagements?
The challenge that comes to mind, I think the biggest challenge I had was actually working with a municipal official. I won't give any names or anything more than that.
No, that's okay.
But this gentleman this gentleman was municipal manager or thereabouts, and I think he had a problem that I was young and I was female, and so that was a very difficult project for me. yeah, he was the client, but he had an issue with what I was doing, although the people, my colleagues, supported me 100%. So yeah, that was I think we went into meetings, and he eventually apologized for the way he'd spoken to me and the accusations and that sort of thing, but that wasn't a great experience.
That
And then yeah, I think it took a lot for him to apologize, but yeah, he did eventually apologize. And then the other challenges, power imbalances when working with communities. I can't say that any other challenges stand out in particular. Perhaps it's, I think the challenge is just giving everyone airspace. Giving everyone airtime to have an opportunity to contribute, and how to hold that space, how to ensure that people who are dominant or who like to dominate the conversation give other people a chance. So often, well, I think one of the projects I'm thinking of that I worked on in terms of economic development, that worked best by breaking people into groups, breaking the community meeting into small groups, and the groups did tasks or activities and then reported back.
Yeah.
So that's another way to give everyone an opportunity to talk without having one or two people dominate the conversation.
Oh, yeah, no, that helps. So, what are some of the approaches or strategies that planners have used to ensure that there is meaningful and inclusive community engagement in South Africa, and have they been successful?
Okay, I can only speak from my experience, and as I said just now, I think breaking into smaller groups to discuss different issues, or to brainstorm, or to prioritize, and there are creative ways of doing that that I think are really useful. If it's a prioritization thing, then people placing stones on, representing how weightily they value a particular aspect. I think another thing that we've used was to make a comic. So we were communicating the fact that an IDP had been prepared, and we we made it into a bit of a comic strip, kind of putting out what the main things were, and we translated that into the vernacular. So that was another way of just, although I think it was urban isiZulu instead of rural isiZulu, so we got a bit of rap for that. But yeah, it was just a different way of communicating. Obviously, one also needs to be sensitive to the fact that when meetings are called, only a limited number of people are able to get to the meeting. So you might find that people are excluded, community members are excluded in terms of the time of the meeting, when you hold it, sort of which day, what time of the day, which day of the week. So one needs to be very careful about when meetings are held, and who comes to these meetings as a result. So it's just important to be mindful of that, particularly in terms of the project that you're working on and what you're trying to achieve. So if you're looking at things to make to improve household livelihoods and sustainability and that sort of thing, yeah, think carefully about when you're holding the meeting and who you're speaking to at the meeting, so that you don't have a distortion of opinion that comes through and what you build into your recommendations.
Oh, that makes sense.
So, for instance, when we there was a project we were doing, and we were surveying what the needs were, the community needs were, and when we spoke to the women, they said no, they need water, they need accessible source of water. And then when you spoke to the men, they said no, we need electricity, because the men wanted to power the fridge for their beers and the TV, and the women were the ones who collected the water, so their priority was accessibility to water. So yeah, that just illustrates it depends. It's important to to speak to the right people, or to speak to a variety of people. Yeah.
Definitely. And I feel like you as the planner, as the expert, would also use your power to ensure that you're kind of being fair, because at least you knew what the different reasonings behind their needs were. And you could decide, no, water is more important than cold beer.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in your opinion, what do you think are the key steps that need to be taken at a policy or institutional level to ensure that there is an inclusive and empowering community engagement process in planning?
Okay, policy at which level are
I
you
guess
talking of?
municipal level, because that's more where I'm focusing on.
Okay, so municipal policy to ensure inclusivity and engagement.
Yeah.
I think policy is to be mindful of when meetings are held and who attends, and to vary it so that there are options. If you've got meetings that are online, make sure that there's an option to speak with communities who don't have access to online, or if you're dealing with if you're doing minutes and it's written but not everyone can read, then you need to be mindful of that. So I think it's a mindfulness of what's appropriate for the context you're dealing with, which is hard to put into policy because so I think the bottom line would be, as planners, you need to consult widely, and you need to listen to what's being said, and so listen widely.
No, that's very important. I wonder if we are taught enough to listen properly and be mindful and think of the context, or if planners just do as they told. Without,
but I mean that's hard to write into policy, but
definitely. Yeah, more of a moral thing or ethical thing.
An approach, an ethical approach,
Definitely. And then my last question, if you don't mind answering, you kind of did answer already as well, is as a woman in the urban planning profession, do you feel like you have less power than men in the field? I feel like you've answered both. You haven't in the beginning, like you were, it was unequal, but you have had an experience where it was like that.
Yeah, I think I've answered that. In terms of making a generalization, like, yeah, I really think it comes down to individual personalities, and how they gel together or not, that creates an environment that's workable or toxic.
Yeah, that's true. I think
Yeah.
we're definitely at a more modern age where the chances of running into a very unequal or sexist environment are low. Because in the reading they were speaking about it, but like it was published in 1988, so obviously the circumstances now are different.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that's it then. You've been extremely helpful and very insightful. I'm sure my listeners will enjoy hearing what you've said. But yeah, you've been very, very helpful. Thank you so much, Jean, for doing this.
Okay, no, it's a pleasure, Sarika, and all the best. Wishing you
Thank,
well.
thank you. I need it.
Okay.